Hello everyone, Scott Hawksworth at recordingexcellence.com here, and today I'm fortunate to be able to sit down with my friend Josh, who has been playing bass for a number of years, both making music and performing. And so I guess to start us off, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about your music experience and how long you've been playing bass and how many bands you've been a part of?
Sure. It's probably been about 12 years, I'd say, playing bass. I've been in about 4 or 5 projects throughout that time, a few side projects there. Mostly I'm self-taught. I've taken music lessons occasionally, taught myself to read sheet music every now and then, and a little bit of music theory, but mostly as pertains to bass.
Sure. So you've recorded in the studio before.
Yep.
As part of a band. So what suggestions would you have for someone who is, playing music and trying to record it to get the best sound for an audio engineer or mixing engineer?
Well, I took a little bit of recording classes actually in my degree. One thing that was really stressed was something that they call a California curve, where you boost your bass levels, you boost your treble frequencies, and you cut a little bit of mids. Of course, every EQ is going to be a little bit different, but that's typically a good starting point. And certainly a big mistake that a lot of bass players make is they'll just crank up their bass frequencies, maybe even their low mids, and cut out treble. I definitely wouldn't recommend that unless you're in a super heavy metal band, and even then I really wouldn't recommend that either. In general, for the process of recording, I'd say it's great if you come in with ideas, even better if you come in with those ideas rehearsed. I think a lot of bands, they're about 4 people. Sometimes you only have 3, sometimes you might have 5 or, more members. You get into this habit of only thinking about the parts that you're playing, whether it's live or in practice or whatever.
Sure.
Certainly when it comes to rhythm guitar and backing vocals, you should really always be thinking about that and what you're going to do whenever you're recording.
Right on. So you've obviously performed as well as a member of many bands and projects. What advice would you have for those interested in performing for the first time or looking to, improve their stage presence and their performances?
Well, as it pertains to stage presence, I would say that almost always crowd engagement is going to trump stage presence. If you can get the crowd to sing a certain part with you, or if you can get them to dance even better,
Sure.
The less you actually have to do on stage. It's really common that you have a front man that can really work the crowd, get them involved, get them doing different things, and then the rest of the band just kind of hangs back and lets him do it. But certainly, the less, I would say, upbeat your music is, or more technical it is, the harder it is to move to, then you want to start to really work on your stage presence and your show. Lighting always helps, but of course, not all of us have access to
Sure.
the funding for that. So that's certainly what I would recommend there. One thing that I would suggest for absolutely everybody is if you ever have a recording of yourself during a show,
Mm-hmm.
watch it and pay attention to what you do. I know a lot of bands just starting out, you'll have members that will walk back and forth and, a bunch of weird mannerisms that you should probably iron out. I had the benefit of also acting in high school, so I had a lot of comfort in being in front of people. If you have a confidence issue or you're kind of shy, just stage fright, whatever,
Sure.
I would honestly suggest approaching it like acting. Think of a persona that you can be on stage, and while you're playing a show, you are that person. You are not yourself. And once you do that, you can then kind of bake into that persona. This is what they do on stage. So that might help.
Wow, solid advice right there. So getting your band and music noticed isn't exactly easy these days. Obviously, though, with the advent of the internet and all that presents, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So what recommendations would you have for a band or artist trying to make an impact on the web?
I think the web has kind of a strange role for a band. In my experience, if you focus on it too much too soon, it almost becomes it could be a waste of time. Worst case scenario, it actually takes away your effort and resources from other things. But that said, it then quickly becomes a really great resource that you need to take advantage of, and it will then surpass anything else that you can be doing. So my advice there would be not to focus on it too much too soon, especially like a band website.
Sure.
I probably wouldn't recommend a band double downing on a website until they got a couple things. A sizable fan base that they keep engaged, that's really interested in their music, that's really interested in buying their stuff, going to their shows, sharing their music, all that other stuff. And then the second thing is like merchandise or
Right.
An EP or single that you can have digital sales on. So certainly a website you might want to hold off on, but there are definitely other sites that you can take advantage of, like Bandmix, Reverb Nation, Facebook, of course, that's
Yep.
big. So yeah, like I said, hold off on the website, focus on the social media stuff. Mileage will vary on that advice, but that's from my experience.
Cool. So bottom line, make sure you build that fan base before you go out and focus on all the bells and whistles.
I think so. And one thing I would go even further on is make sure that you focus on a fan base that is actually going to your shows, that there's this
Right.
this physical element. A band that I was in, we spent not a whole lot of money, but a sizable chunk of money on a Facebook campaign.
Sure.
And we ended up getting a few hundred likes to our band, and that was pretty great. But ultimately, it didn't help out at all.
Right, because they didn't show up and engage.
Right, exactly.
Right.
However, I would say a Facebook campaign can be really effective if you launch it with something else that you're launching. Like, hey, we have new T-shirts, kind of bake that into the Facebook campaign, or we have a new single out, or something like that.
Right on, right on. So, do you have any tips for bands or artists that are wanting to get more connected to their local music and or their recording scene? So, just trying to get plugged in.
Yeah, at the beginning, there really isn't anything better that you can do than actually physically going to those places, to venues around you, and just talking in person with different people. What I would suggest is finding a bunch of bands that will complement your music, or is similar to your music, and talking with them, because you'll never know whenever they might take an interest in your project and can bring you on for whatever show.
Mm-hmm.
And you then, instead of having this exclusive, this is their fan base, this is our fan base, this is some other fan base, you start to pull resources, and collectively people will gravitate to whatever project that they really like. But nothing wrong with kind of sharing your fans and having others share fans with you.
Absolutely.
And I would say the additional benefit to actually going to places and talking with these bands is you then get to see if a particular venue is something that you'd even be interested in playing. And you could even meet the owner and talk with them possibly. So bottom line, go to the places.
Get out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And don't try to hit up everything because you're going to run out of money and time quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Do a little bit of research of who's active in the local scene that are projects that you like or that are projects that are similar to you, and try to develop relationships with those acts.
Sure. So you're a huge music fan, obviously. When you listen to an album or a single, and this really should be helpful to anyone who is recording or trying to produce from home. What, in your opinion, kind of separates a good recording from an average recording?
Absolutely. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is a well-balanced mix. That's pretty much a given.
Sure.
going back to, just how you EQ things, you want everything to sound like it's on an even level, crisp, clear, all that stuff. One thing that I noticed, and even I'll hear national acts kind of have that element into their recording, you want to avoid this recording sound that's almost like a microphone was across the other room from your amp.
Sure.
I don't really know how to explain it, but you'll hear it in just like a certain element. Lots of times it's a guitar part or a bass part or something like that. It just sounds like it's muffled, and that's far away from where the recording took place. Maybe check your mic positions there. Not too sure what causes that.
Great advice. Well, that's all we have for today. Thank you so much to Josh for sitting down, and yeah, good luck recording and performing and with all your projects out there. Thanks.
Thanks.